my computer's been kind of on the feet, so I respect that. You're okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Happy New Year. Good evening and welcome to the January 10th meeting of the Albany Planning and Zoning Commission. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we please have a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Donaldson?
Here.
Commissioner Jennings?
Here.
Commissioner Kent?
Here.
Commissioner Minotti?
Here.
Chair Geeson Fields?
Present. All right, we have a full commission today. And our next item up is ex parte communication disclosures. Are there any disclosures that a commissioner would like to make? Okay, seeing none, I will close that item and move on to the next, our consent calendar. The consent calendar items, we have 3 items on the consent calendar today. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes of December 13th, Planning Application 17-067, which is the design review for 721 Talbot, and design review or Planning Application 17-076, design review for 1021 Stannage. The consent calendar items are considered to be routine and or administerial. Thus, everything on the consent calendar will be considered and voted on by a single vote of the commission. However, if someone from the audience or a commissioner would like to discuss a project individually, we can pull that item from the consent calendar and discuss it. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull an item from our consent calendar for discussion? Okay, seeing no one, I will ask, is there a commissioner who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar for discussion? And if I understand correctly, the design review for 721 Talbot, planning application 17-067, we are going to continue to a date uncertain, which just leaves the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes, which I have no corrections to.
I can move approval of the consent calendar then.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, if you are here for an item that's on the consent calendar, it has been approved. There is a 14-day appeal period, so please do not make any permanent decisions or moves until that 14-day appeal period is over. Next item up is our, is our public comment period. Public comment period is available for anyone desiring to address the commission on an item that is not on our agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Under the Brown Act, the commission is only able to receive your comments and or defer them to staff to be included on a later agenda if the commission so decides. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission on an item that is not on our agenda tonight?
Mr. Chairman, could I make, I guess I'm not a member of the public, but could I make a comment anyway? Last week, Alexa Hauser's husband, Terry Lamb, died, and Alexa was the person with the Diverse Housing Working Group that came to all of our meetings and kind of made many public comments here talking about housing. And she lived in Albany for many years, and then they moved last year to Grass Valley area, and that's why she hasn't been here. Her husband, Terry Lamb, was a filmmaker, and the Albany Community Foundation awarded him Visual Artist of the Year last year, gave him the Artist of the Year award for a film that he entered in the Film Fest called The Name, or The Name. It was a very cool little 20-minute movie that I loved, and he had cancer, and the word was out that he died last 10 days ago or so. So perhaps tonight we could adjourn the meeting then in memory of Terry Lamb and with respect to Alexa, who contributed so much here.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Donaldson. And with that, I will close the public comment period and move on to our action items. We have 3 items up for discussion. Good. Mind giving us a presentation?
This is planning application 17074, design review for a new 2-story home at 967 Curtis. Some background on the property. The subject property is a 5,000 square foot lot, 40 by 125, with an existing 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1,453 square foot home built in 1925. There's an existing detached garage on the southeast portion of the property. City records show the following work done to the property: single room addition, a re-roof, another re-roof, kitchen/bathroom remodel, conversion of closet space, and porch enclosure. Here is a street view of the property as it looks today. Project request. The applicant is seeking design review approval for a new 2-story home at 967 Curtis. The applicant is proposing a new 1,095 square foot main level to include a living room, kitchen, dining room, and half bathroom, and also a new 1,095 square foot second-story addition which will accommodate a master suite, 2 bedrooms, a full bathroom, and a guest/office room. This will result in a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 2,190 square foot home within a maximum height of 24 feet. Here's an existing elevation of the home, and here's what's proposed. And here's the landscape plan that's been included with the project submittal. This is towards the front of the property. And here's what's proposed at the rear: concrete patio and wooden bench with gas fire pit. Exceptional design. Projects which exceed a 0.45 FAR are subject to exceptional design as reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Exceptional design treatments include vertical plywood siding, large ceiling floor windows, a sliding glass door, new wood fencing, and landscaping/hardscaping improvements. The landscape plan indicates a variety of plants proposed at the front of the home and a concrete patio with a wood bench and gas fire pit at the rear. Parking. There's an existing detached garage structure measuring 241 square feet in area that is proposed to remain. 2 off-street parking spaces are proposed, one in the existing garage and one in the driveway. Correspondence is received. Staff just last minute received 1 correspondence from a neighbor on Marin, and other than that, we haven't received anything else. The owner has also submitted a petition in support of the project signed by adjacent neighbors. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA. Recommendation: the staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions of approval. That's it.
Are there any, excuse me, are there any questions of staff about this project? Commissioners?
I have a couple of questions relating to the staff report. The first, and you mentioned in your presentation the exceptional design for projects exceeding 0.45 FAR, but then it looks like the FAR is calculated as 0.43, and I just wanted to clarify whether we're being asked to make findings about exceptional design or not.
I guess
So we don't have specific findings that go with exceptional design. It's really at the commission's discretion.
Right, sorry. I guess just to clarify, like, does
Yeah.
that even apply? I mean,
If it's under the 0.45, it doesn't. But
It doesn't.
okay.
in our review of it, we still feel that it does present
Okay.
some exceptional design qualities.
Okay. On the staff summary of the residential design guidelines, number 2 is every house needs a usable front porch, and it says NA, and I was just curious if you could talk about what that means. It looks from you can't really tell in this picture, but from the plans, it looks like there is at least, some kind of patio in the front, and so I'm trying to clarify if there is a porch, and B, what why it says NA in the staff report.
Proposed right back there.
So it's not a covered entry, I believe, and I can defer this to the architect, but I believe it's just a concrete landing with the front door.
Okay, so that doesn't count as a porch, or
I don't,
does it?
I think it's.
I'm not really sure how porch is
Yeah.
technically
I mean,
defined.
I think generally when we look at porches, we look at them as having some sort of, either a
Okay, some
defined
kind of
and covered
enclosure.
entry or, a guardrail or something that really identifies it as,
Okay.
as a porch entry. And I think, and again, the architect can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in this case, it's just a concrete landing to the
Okay.
front door.
And if the guidelines say that it needs a usable front porch, I mean, that sounds pretty prescriptive to me. I know they're guidelines, but I'm just wondering if you can comment on whether the lack of a front porch is an issue under
Well, other
the,
projects have been approved where there hasn't been a front porch, or it's been, due to size constraints or other things, kind of minimal in nature. So, again, it's really up to the commission's discretion how they perceive the project.
okay, thank you.
The only clarification I'll just add, as a sort of piggyback, is that obviously our design guidelines are just guidelines, and regardless, correct me if I'm wrong too, Ann or Chris, regardless of what it says, whether it has prescriptive language, it's all sort of a recommendation.
Yeah, understood. I guess I'm just trying to understand what our criteria really are that to make sure we're applying things consistently. Thanks.
Are there any other
Well,
questions?
We are also in a role of design review, so not just, we're adding aesthetic comment and issues, so we can apply guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I was trying to get at is that we have a lot of sort of leeway in terms of what we decide.
Yep.
Are there any other comments, or not quite comments, but questions that need clarification from staff? If not,
Oh, sorry, I did have one more question, which is just on the floor area ratio calculations. I just saw, well, it says in the staff report on the table that the second floor is 1,004 square feet, but it looked from the plans and just from the fact that it's, like straight up and down, that it should be 1095. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, we just took from the stairs. So it is essentially 1095, but with the 91 square
Minus
from
the
that
stairs.
was allocated towards the stairs, just to make sure that we're not deducting more than 60 square feet. So the architect and I decided to put it on that table, just to clarify how much total square footage the stairs are. But
Okay.
that counts towards the second floor.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the math, but I understand your point, so thank you.
and are there any other questions? If not, okay. I will now open it up to the applicant. If you would like to address the commission to present your project, provide us with any sort of additional information that we might not know or that might help us to better understand the project, please feel free. Yes, please. Speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Yassi Vafai. I've been practicing architecture since 1987, and I've got to say that City of Albany has been tremendously amazing, from the front desk to phone calls and everything, so I really appreciate it. And Lloyd and Sabine, my clients, are incredible graphic designers, so the city is really lucky to have them. And I assure you that they're the toughest critics, and that's why the house looks the way that it does. To address the front porch, the existing front porch is where the 3-foot fence is, and because of the fact that the side slopes, there's a couple of steps that takes you to that front area, and we just wanted to have more frontage because that's where the sun comes through, and also across the street there's school, so we wanted to have a little bit more space between the house and the street, and to create some privacy. So The house actually is set back a lot further than what the front setback is, so that's a positive. And we wanted to, instead of creating a wall, we wanted the landscape to become some kind of a screen rather than having a wall as a front fence, because it's better for the environment, it's environmentally more friendly, and it's deciduous. So in the winter, the leaves fall down and the sun goes in, so it's better for the interior of the house and a better living style. The footprint of the house is a lot smaller than the existing footprint of the house, and the existing house has actually quite a lot of water damage. So remodeling it, having two small children, I don't really know how safe it's going to be, dealing with all the mold mitigation and all the water damage. The other thing that I've done is I've raised the slab so that the water goes around the side and under the slab and waters the landscaping, and the driveway is going to be permeable. So all around, we've really addressed as much as we can to allow for the house to be as green and natural as possible. And about the square footage of the house, there is a second floor atrium. There's an atrium that goes by the stairs. The stairs is L-shaped. And there's an atrium that with a skylight up above that takes the light through. And also to connect the front to the back, I've brought some landscape inside the house, which also is better for the air quality and living. And also Sabine really likes to have greenery around. And also this house is, visually looking at it with the poles, it's about 3.5, 4 feet lower than the house right next door. If you look at them elevation to elevation, visually you can just see that it's much lower. And the materials we've chosen are very natural, so it's essentially wood. So I don't know any other material that can be more natural than wood. And the front door is red, so it delineates and it has good feng shui qualities, color. And that's about it. It connects the inside and the outside. There's a lot of glass. And Lloyd and Sabine and Sasha and Bruno are absolutely adorable. So the neighborhood is really lucky to have them. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I have a question. The plans call for the old garage to stay.
Yes.
And that be a pretty strange juxtaposition with that. And what are you planning to do? It looks to me from the street that it's in pretty bad shape. And it's a design compatible with the design of the existing house, and I would say, quite shockingly different from your design. So what are your thoughts, or what are the owner's thought on what are you going to do with that garage if you're not going to tear it down?
Well, the garage actually has redwood siding, and the exterior of the building is either going to be cedar siding or redwood siding. So the exterior of the garage has horizontal planks.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is, after the building is completed, we're going to match the color of the garage, and also the garage is very boxy. So we're going to strip the paint and sort of match it, and at that point we're going to take a look at it, and there's going to be quite a lot of landscape. That's going to be the area between the garage and the garage and the house has actually increased because of the design of, functionally designing the house this way. It's increased that area, so there's going to be some foliage in front of the garage that is you're not going to see a whole lot of the garage, but whatever you're going to see is going to be stripped and it's going to be the same color as the house.
Okay. Another question
Yes.
I have. With so much glass in the front on both upper and lower floor, I'm thinking about, well, what's that going to look like when the building is inhabited and when it's nighttime anyway, there's light inside, and how will the occupants, balance need for privacy with those large areas of glass and people walking by on the street, and how will the building look different when it's people are living in it and they want their privacy?
Right. The way that the front porch came about was just because of that. And then the landscape is going to grow a little bit, so that's going to create some privacy. And the shade system, there's multiple ways to hang it. One is there are roller shades that you can hang from the ceiling and pull them down, but also you can reverse hang them, so that there's a string in the middle and you can hang them from the bottom and pull it up. So when you do that, the first 6 feet or the first whatever, 5 feet, 4 feet, depending on how much privacy you need, is going to create that privacy between the occupants and the public.
Okay.
And also, we could make the front fence slightly taller, and we were negotiating, but some things you need to sort of be there to experience it, to sort of decide how tall it's going to be. But the fence is going to be the same material as the building, and is actually 2x stripped and spaced every 1.5 inches on the building. But it's solid because it's sitting on a solid back. But the fence is essentially the same thing, but instead of sitting on something that's solid, it's transparent in the middle. So it creates sort of that illusion of flow. But we can make it taller if you wish us to. But I thought it's nice to
Yeah,
have.
so we could modify the exterior design, but with the windows, with very large, expansive windows like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that we can specify how what kind of blinds and interior treatments you're going to use. I don't think I would go that far, but I do want you and the owners to understand that whatever you do with the blinds and the sunshades and the privacy protection for inside is going to affect how the building looks from the outside very much with so much exposed glass. Yeah.
Right, absolutely, you're right.
So
And you can
that's going to
see
be a critical decision. Yeah.
you can see this sort of the height of the sofa on that rendering. So
Right.
again, we can make the shades go up and down, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing that I can think about at this point.
Okay. Okay.
Other questions?
Two questions. One, can you talk a little more about why the decision was made to tear down and rebuild? And then more of a detail was the landscape plan shows a gate, an auto pedestrian gate, and talk a little bit about what you're looking at there.
Why? Well, the first thing that came to mind is the amount of mold that's at the site. So today I met with 4 contractors, and initially we were going to meet in the building so that everybody could see the property, but we were there for about 5 minutes, and then I started coughing. I don't know if you have any experience with mold, but Sasha is 7 and Bruno is 10 years old. I wouldn't want my children to grow up in that environment, breathing it overnight, sleeping. And so that's one reason. And the other reason is that the amount of money it would take to bring the building up to date, because the building wasn't really renovated. It was just a little bit of work here and there, but it hasn't really been renovated for quite a long time. And the lifestyle for Lloyd and Sabine, they're both graphic designers, so they adhere to this lifestyle, the modern and more spacious open floor plan better. The connection between the inside and outside is a much healthier way of living. And also, I think raising children, I have 1 child myself, and 90% of the time that he's home, he's outside in the front yard. I have a modern house myself. And it's amazing because I can cook in the kitchen, and he can either be in the front yard or the backyard, and I can keep an eye on him to make sure he's safe. And I think the same is true for anybody. I think it's a better way of living to have an open floor plan and the indoor-outdoor living, especially in a climate like California. I think we're tremendously lucky, and it would be a shame not to take advantage of it. Plus, I met with 4 contractors today, and every single one of them was tremendously excited about the project. And we haven't really picked one, but they said it is so much less work it is so much more expensive to fix that house than to build this house. So there's an economy of scale in all areas, and I can go through it category by category if you would like to. And your other question was, the gate?
Yeah, I don't see it on there, and it's just called out on the landscape plan.
It's on may I show the floor plans to you, or?
It's also on the floor plans, too.
Do you have the floor plans, or
Yeah.
can you?
I guess his
them up.
question is,
We'll bring
why
them up.
isn't it shown on your renderings? Because it seems to be a big
I'm looking
junction
for-
between the
I didn't see
two,
it on the floor plans. I saw it on the, I saw
how
it
it
on the landscape.
design relates.
I didn't see it on the floor plans either. Here?
So the gate,
Oh, here it is, yeah.
if you go to the first floor plan, you can see that's exactly for the reason of privacy issues and having children. So if Bruno and Sasha are playing outside, they can be on the side or in the back, and mom can do whatever she wants to do and have visual access to mom or dad. And then the larger gate is for nighttime security. Let's say Lloyd
I
goes.
don't have a problem with the gate. I was just
Okay.
curious what it looked like.
It's just going to look like the gate in the front. It's exactly the same detail carried through. So if you go to the front rendering, it's right. It's going to be that taken back. It's going to be that taken back and then across and down.
Okay, thank you.
And how tall will it be?
It's going to be at the same elevation as what is shown on that. So it's just going to continue. It's going to be 3 foot above the finished floor, or 3 foot 6 inches above finished floor.
I guess my one kind of question for you is, have you thought about different locations for that gate? Specifically, possibly like moving it back so that it aligns with the corner of the building? And the reason I'm asking is because one of the things we try to promote in our design guidelines is that how do we say it? That the front yard landscapes are the home's contribution to the community, and also that the front yard and the front facade design are the home's contribution to the community as well. And so it seems like it's not very inviting if, hey, there's no sort of obvious, like, easily recognizable path to the front door, and then to get to the front door, you have to walk down the driveway, you have to go through a gate, and then upstairs and around to the door. So it doesn't seem very conducive to sort of public aspect of the project.
Do you mind going to the floor plan that shows the gate,
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
so that I can sort of take a look at it and okay, it's the next drawing. There is the side slopes, and so the side slopes, if we put the gate right at where the front porch or deck is, it is too far forward, so we wanted to recess it back.
No, I'm actually referring to the opposite direction,
Oh, which
the
one?
corner of the building proper. So if you look at the screen up here
Right,
behind you,
okay.
moving it back to this corner, so it's right there.
Oh, why don't we move the gate back there?
Yeah. So that people in the public who want to come to the house, don't have to.
Go through a
"Oh,
gate to
Where
go?
do I go? And, I guess I'll go down their driveway. That seems a little odd that I'm now opening their driveway gate to get to their front door.
Well, the reason there is a gate that is 3 feet is because that's for public access, And then the reason that there is a larger gate is because the car needs to go through. That's why we didn't divide it into two. We didn't divide it into two equal parts. One is larger, that has a larger swing, and the other one is for sort of people entry. And because of the slope of the side, it just made sense to actually put the gate there and then turn and take a step up. And then, step up, turn around, and go into that area. It's a more ceremonial entry rather than, "Wham, I'm right here, come inside." It's more feng shui friendly, I guess. It's more meandering and more a more pleasant journey to take if you walk yourself.
If you'd like to, you can respond, but please come up to the microphone.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that the opening here allows our children to stay within the property and rather than on the outside of the fence. If we brought it to that corner, that part would be isolated from the front door so that they would have to go around to the outside to get back into the house. And this was meant to be also secure for our young children, so they would be protected and they could come through here. This door will be identified in some way that there's a latch or something like that so people can see that it's a front door so they can come in. But anyway, that's why we did this, so that the gate would protect, prevent our children from running off the street.
Okay.
And also, if they get a pet, the pet isn't going to run in the middle of the street. He or she is going to be contained within the safety of the house.
Okay. And then, can you please just clarify what the exterior finish material is going to be exactly? If I understand correctly, I think it's going to be a 1.5 inch square battens that are basically fastened to a plywood substrate.
Right, exactly. Except that the plywood might turn into a different material that is going to be more waterproof. So it depends. We're finishing up those details through the CD phase, but essentially it's going to be the same principle. It's going to be behind the redwood. And the reason we did the redwood at every other 1.5 inches is because we wanted to save redwood, but we wanted to get the look, so we got less for more. So it's going to be more cost effective, and also it's going to be less material, but it's going to give us the same finish and beauty of the natural redwood or cedar.
And
So the strips will be redwood, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
then is it, if I understand correctly, your proposal is that whatever the substrate behind it is, it's going to be painted black?
It's going to be a darker color than the redwood, so it makes the redwood pop and it makes the other one disappear. So it gives a lot of depth to the facade of the building.
Okay.
And is the redwood going to be salvaged from the existing house? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Well, we're going to try to
Yeah.
use as much of it as possible, but then if there's termite damage or whatever, we don't want to transfer it to the new construction.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple follow-up. So a lot of my comments are already, well, vetted by everybody else, but I want to go back to something Commissioner Jennings talking about, the front porch.
Right.
It doesn't seems to be a very kind of harsh transition from the exterior to the interior. There's no overhang. In pouring rain or wind, you just all of a sudden, boom, you're right in the living room. If someone, it doesn't seem to, you say it follows the feng shui principles, but walking by the glass window pane to get to the door, there's no hiding inside. You're home. They're going to see your home, right? So someone's knocking. It's almost like it's an awkward transition, I think, to have people walk by the window to look at you before they knock on your door. My thoughts. And also, it just seems since they're knocking on the door and they're pouring rain, there's nothing covering them. There's no way to say goodbye gracefully or hello, because you're constantly either in the element or indoors. It seems like there needs to be a little bit of a transition. That's one function the porches give that you're not giving here. If someone to drop off a package or something at your house, they'd have to leave it outside. So that's something I think that's lacking in the design a little bit. I understand the gate. I think that makes sense. At first, I wasn't so sure, but after your explanation, I came around, and I think a lot of people have gates in the front yard, so it makes sense. It's low, so it's not that. You're not creating a gated community feel. I think it's low enough where it's just a nice entry. The other element was back to what Doug was saying about the lack of privacy. That big glass from the. I think you're going to end up having shades that are drawn all the time or pulled up all the time. I don't know if you really want to be cooking, hanging around living room and at night and everybody walk down the street, just see exactly what you're doing. It just seems too open to me in that kind of small urban rather tight neighborhood urban context.
That is something that I completely understand, and we've done about 80 houses in Venice, California, and all different areas of LA, and most of them have huge expansive glasses. My own house I live on a walk street, and a lot of people walk by, and I have made a lot of friends, and I also have, my kid has made a lot of friends as a result of it. But also I have the option of, putting the shade up and my neighbors know that, I want my own privacy, leave me alone or whatever. Or if the shade's down, it's sort of very inviting. And it sort of brings the outside in and the inside out. I understand the public nature of it. But also, I think that in the daytime, you can see the outside and nobody can see the inside. At nighttime, you see the inside, and others see the inside, but you can't really see the outside. And that's why they're going to pull the shade up. So I really leave it up to my clients to decide how they want to, have their privacy or not. I'm not going to want to control them as to. And we've gone back and forth about having a bigger wall, a smaller wall, putting, sandblasted glass or not. But when you have the option of having the shade that functions and gives you, whatever you want at whatever time you want, why not, choose that flexibility rather than build something that doesn't give you that flexibility? And also, if your children are playing in the front yard, you are going to want to see them. And if they're in the front porch with their kids, what my child likes to do is likes to go around the house. And, every, 3 minutes I look, I'm like, okay, there he is. He's going around and he's going around and he's going around. So I think that depends on their needs and their lifestyle.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to ask one question, but then I want to open up to the public comment. Right. Bring it back for our discussion. Right.
I agree.
Sorry.
Okay, so we're getting too much in discussion.
Yeah. My one last question for you is, how is the water going to be drained from the roof? Are you going to have gutters, downspouts, internal roof drains?
Initially, we were going to have internal roof drains, but after speaking with contractors and based on experience, I think it's better to have gutters. And
How is it going to work with the modern design? I mean, are you going to have downspouts that are visible on the exterior?
if you look at the section slopes to the side, and then the building so essentially the slopes down. And then we're going to have gutters on that side, which is a side yard, and we're going to hide it as much as possible. And I was speaking with contractors to see what material to do it at, and I think copper would be a good choice because it sort of blends in with the color of the building. And so that's what we've decided to do, but I haven't detailed it yet. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations, I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Of course.
And unless there are any specific questions of the applicant, I'm going to now open this up to the public comment period. Thank you very much. We may call you back up.
Okay.
And so now I'm going to open it up to the public comment period for this project. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the commission on this topic? No speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
No speaker cards. All right. Well, that was quick. All right. No public comment. Okay, and with that, I'm going to now close the public comment period, bring it back to the commission for a full discussion. If there's anybody who would like, if you'd like to continue your comments, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Well, I'll just,
I think it's, quite honestly, I think that's a good general topic, just the notion of public and private in terms of that front facade, because I think at least our design guidelines tend to treat the front of the building and its front yard as
and as I looked around the whole building, I mean, the first look at it was, wow, it's pretty stark, but it seemed to be a fairly sensitive placement with the windows in relationship to other buildings. And I totally get the glass window seeing people outside. That's a real great aspect of modern design. In fact, the older buildings kind of ignored the fact that somebody might be in the backyard, you couldn't even see them. So I really appreciate that. But it seems when it got to the front yard, that it was really, it was pretending it wasn't really in a dialogue. It's almost awkward, where if you're walking on the street and you look in, you feel like you shouldn't be looking in, and especially if the light's on and you can see right in. And then the drapes would be up, so why have all that glass if the drapes are up? And if it's during the daytime and you're walking by and you can't see out, then it's a little bit awkward because someone's staring at you from this big blank window that you can't see. And I don't know if the windows are tinted or not, but it has a little awkwardness on both ends, in a subtle, not huge, but subtle. And then the function aspect I get back to, I just think I don't think it would destroy the design to have some little overhang, something to make it a little bit nicer, more gentle entrance.
I mean, I'm just going to piggyback on what you said on that comment, that I know one of my sort of pet peeves is walking around in Albany, and there's a lot of houses with big sort of picture front windows, and they almost always have their blinds pulled. Yeah. And so I know I live in a condo building, and my neighbor who has windows on the public staircase, when I first moved in, I looked in to see the place, and those blinds were drawn right in my face. So, I think I don't know. I personally think it's a fair assessment to say that that's generally how people sort of behave. But that being said, I do agree with your comment. I think that it needs some kind of detail to the front, and I think an awning might be what it needs over the front door, and it can be done in a modernist aesthetic where, it's just sort of a horizontal awning that's either cantilevered or hung by steel wire. But I think that might help me, at least to in addition to the color, which I appreciate, call out the front door, but as you said, also kind of create that spot where that sort of public-private mix can happen, so that you're not just, either you're inside or you're out.
Right, transition zone.
Yeah. So, I don't know, those are a couple of first comments. Are there any other thoughts?
Yeah, I shared the same set of comments. And I'll say, I think that the house, considered on its own, looks beautiful. Like, it makes a real statement. I think it's very striking. And I like the design a lot, but I do think it's important to think about how it relates to the street and the context around it. And it does seem a little stark in consideration with the neighboring homes. And so I do think that doing something like adding an awning to create more of that transition from the indoor to outdoor could be a way to, add some depth and really soften the overall appearance of the front of the house. But I like it overall, and it does look a lot different from the houses around it. That's not a problem as far as I'm concerned, but I think we need to try to find some way to make sure it fits together.
I'm curious about your, sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me.
The design is a stretch for me. I think I like it. It really is a stretch for me. I think it's a stretch for the context of that neighborhood. I was actually pleased that you made efforts to contact the surrounding neighbors, and I was pleased that you had so many of them that said they did not object, and we have no one coming to the public hearing tonight to object. I kind of agree with the one letter received this afternoon that, that it's, it is kind of a wow for Albany. It really is a big step forward. And we have had more and more very modern buildings that we've approved in the last 4 or 5 years. Our new design review guidelines are acknowledging the potential of that. And I have seen some of them that have gone up and I really like. And my gut feeling is that this will be very elegant when it's done, that it will look good. I like the vertical. I like the wood lattice with the black, dark background behind it, the dramatic statement of the door. I expressed my concerns about the privacy, and all the other commissioners have picked up on that, and that's going to be a lot of how the home is lived in. I'm one of the people in my neighborhood that I love having the open windows, and I love being able to look out. But that is, I'm in a minority there. Most of the homes in my street, probably most of the homes in Albany, keep their blinds shut. Especially west-facing, because you have that afternoon sun coming in. We have to protect, we have to close our blinds sometimes just to protect the furniture that's in the room from the sun fading it. So the other thing that I like about it is the landscaping and the way that the landscaping looks like it has the potential to soften it. I'm hoping Chris has some comments on the plantings in particular, because he's the landscape architect, and I defer to him a lot on that. I'm curious to know what the large tree is going to be, and that tree, to me, is just critical as to how this building ends up presenting itself to the street. This is a project where the drawings look great, and the building could look better than the drawings. It could be look very good, or if it's not executed right, then it really won't work, and these drawings will be the best we see. I hope that's not the case. It has to be really well done, and I think the details of the lines have to be perfect, and the landscaping I think is going to be critical. That was why I raised a comment about the garage. If this building were there now and that garage were back there at the back end of the lot right now, it would just not work at all. So you're going to have to do something to make that garage fit in a little better. You're talking about materials and the permeable paving and the driveway. Your rendering shows just kind of a gray slat. Again, that's going to be really important what you do, and we don't have the materials in front of us or the drawing, the rendering of how that driveway is going to look. But that could make a big difference visually. So I think you're asking me to take a leap of faith here, design review-wise, I think, and it's a stretch for me. It's going to be very different from your neighbors on both sides. There's no question about that. If it works, it's going to be good. It's going to be really nice. It's important to me because it's in one of the most visible streets. It really is quite a visible location in Albany. So many people go to Marin School and go by Marin School. There's a lot of visibility of this building, of this lot from Marin Avenue, heading up the hill. I probably can vote yes and support it, but it's with some nervousness and anxiety about how it's going to really turn out.
No, I appreciate your comments. I have a question maybe for the applicant. Would you mind pulling up the sections? It's sheet A2-1. If you could just, if you could go up one sheet. I'm sorry, go up one more sheet. Thank you. So it looks like you're illustrating like a fence here with these shapes. Is that correct?
Right. Initially, we went back and forth, and then I had the fence at that height because of all of the issues that you were discussing about the privacy. And then Lloyd and Sabine discussed it, and then they wanted it to be at 3 foot 6 inches. So there's a discrepancy in drawings, and I apologize. That's supposed to be 3 foot 6 inches, but it's shown as 6 foot 8 inches.
Okay, good. That was.
As a reminder, you can't have a 6-foot-high fence in your front yard anyway, so that's.
Well, it's set back to the setback of the building. It's set back 20, actually further than the front yard setback. It's set back, I think, 26 feet. I don't recall, but it's set back quite a bit. But it's going to be at 40 inches rather than at the height that I have shown there. So That's a mistake on my
You said
part, I apologize.
40 inches, you said?
40 inches, 3 foot 6 inches, right?
And then could you just clarify, is the big sort of picture window at the front elevation, is that going to be a sliding glass door?
Yes, it's either going to be an XX or an XO, depending on the cost estimates that we get back. So one is going to be fixed and one is going to open, or both of them are going to open back and forth.
I'm assuming it's just going to be a standard clear glass, or is it going to be
it-
reflective or tinted or anything like
It's
that?
going to be, it depends on the Title 24 calculation that we get back, and that's going to determine the, the type of glass we're going, but it's not going to be reflective. It's going to either be slightly tinted for the Title 24 calculation, or it's going to be, as clear as possible, essentially.
Okay, those are my only two questions I have. Thank you.
Of course, I actually have a question regarding the front cantilever. Do you propose that only over the front door, or do you propose that, I wanted to get some clarification so that I deliver what your recommendations are.
Well, if I think I was only pushing for the front door,
Over the
kind
front
of to
door?
look more of a, kind of an entry marker. And
Sort of like a 5 feet by 5 feet over with like the cables that you were talking about.
something there so you could stand out there comfortably and not get wet.
Okay, perfect. We can certainly do that. But the way that the floor plan is designed as you enter, sort of, instead of having a sort of a, what do you call it? Like a room for shoes and closet and everything. There's a 30-inch floor-to-ceiling cabinet that's going to house all the shoes and coats and everything like that. And the way that it's designed is multifunctional. So you sit on the sofa, and that's a lower bench, and you put your shoes back on and, say your goodbyes and whatever and go out. But I'm more than happy to put like a steel or some kind of a overhang over the door for rain protection, for opening the door and things like that. I'll definitely include that in the plans.
Okay.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you.
Of course,
Are
thank
there
you.
any other comments? You can have a seat.
Okay,
I was going to say, I really find the design to be very attractive, and there is a big juxtaposition between the proposed project and the rest of the street, but it's a very attractive design with a few of the tweaks that we've been talking about. I guess one detail I was hoping to discuss was on the south wall, and then maybe there's a larger point I wanted to make, but on the first level, there's only that one window.
Yeah.
And I was a little concerned just about the, just a blank wall, but there is a lot of detail with the facade there.
There is.
Redwood. Does anybody else have a concern about that?
I see what you're saying.
Wait, sorry, which side are we looking at? That
The
side?
one that's called the south
Yeah.
Oh, that, yeah.
That's where the south
Elevation
side.
there, yeah.
elevation.
I thought that was,
And I don't think it's necessarily light on the inside, because it seems like there's going to be plenty of light coming in, but it's
Yeah.
more from the
Yeah.
outside. How does it look?
I was okay with it because it gave the neighbor to the south, who has a lot of windows facing out there, more
Privacy.
privacy.
Yeah.
So I thought in that way it worked for them.
Sorry, it wasn't this one, it was
The
the,
other one, right, yeah.
Which one?
it's labeled as south
It's on the
elevation.
south side. That was the north.
Not the south?
It's on page 12.
That's not it? Okay.
that's-
Oh, there,
oh, I had it
there you
wrong.
go. The north side, okay. Right there?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the south elevation, yeah.
Oh,
That's the north? It says south.
yeah. It's labeled south, mislabeled. Yeah.
Just the first floor, I was just,
Yeah.
Okay, looking south.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
uh-huh.
If you look at the floor plan, as you enter the floor-to-ceiling cabinet that acts as a storage for coats and everything is right to the left of the first floor plan. This is the second floor plan. So you can see. So when you enter, this is all the cabinets. So that window that you saw is for the powder room, and this is the kitchen, which has sort of the 8-foot cabinets up here with all the appliances and everything at an island. So it doesn't really make sense to put a window there. And also, I believe in economy of scale, so if you're going to do something, do it right. So if you're going to put a window, just put a beautiful window. So instead of putting windows everywhere, I put it at the places that it makes sense to put window. And then on the other side, obviously, there's the stair that we need the structural value, and then there is a window from the dining room to look out. And so I think the position of the windows are very systematically and methodically placed. And also, because of the way the building is designed, I'm not a structural engineer, but based on my experience, I think we're going to need to have that lateral load support that, to have that, rather than putting yet another moment frame there or something like that. Right, thank you so much.
So that's the north wall, though, the north wall of the house. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe my
So
thoughts
it's
about.
adjacent to the
those sensitive
driveway.
areas. I guess, so how is it conflicting with the neighbor to the south as far as all their windows? You're looking right into each other's windows?
No, we actually, Lloyd spoke with the neighbors, you mean right next door to the driveway?
Yeah, right across the driveway.
No, we spoke with them, and they're perfectly fine with everything, and they're very happy, and they signed a signature, and they're excited about the building and the landscape and everything, so.
It looks like the landscape plan is, thank you.
Of course, thank
Looks
you.
like the landscape plan is showing bamboo between the driveway and the property line too as a,
Yep.
in the
Oh, right.
rendering and landscape, so that could possibly be like a visual barrier between the two properties.
So I'm fine after she described that, not making change. I guess the larger concern I have is just, I wouldn't want to see a lot of these tear downs in Albany necessary. And we've seen, one or two that I can think of recently. It's a very attractive building, but is this something we're going to, and I know places like Palo Alto, they get lots of these happening. So it's just a concern I have. And then one detail that I just, maybe this is a question for Ann, being it's across the street from the school, I know the property owner of the south has a kind of an after-school program. Are there any kinds of special conditions that during the construction period that we would need to be concerned about? Most of the foot traffic going to Marin, I think, is actually across the street, not on their side of the street, but.
Not that I'm aware of. I actually didn't know that the neighbor ran an after-school program.
My daughter used to go there.
Okay. We don't have any special conditions included as part of that. My guess would be that if there is the potential for some sort of conflict or issue, it's something that could be worked out between the neighbors, as the construction progresses.
Yeah, and the school itself, Marin, my observation is more kids walk on the other side of the street, so it's not a conflict when trucks are there or anything like that, but, okay.
I guess I'm curious if you have any thoughts, Chris, about the front yard landscaping and its design. And I'm specifically just thinking in terms of its sort of pedestrian-friendly aspects and it being one that sort of is inviting to the public.
Well, it's funny because it was a month ago or so or two, we had a contemporary designer in front of us, and their landscape was very gardeny. And I suggested they make the landscape fit with the contemporary nature of the building. But in this one, I think what is done is really the right thing. It's really loose and gardeny, natural looking, not gardeny, but more of a kind of a natural look.
Yep.
And it kind of contrasts the building really nicely. Especially shown nicely in that, even though the plants aren't really placed exactly, but it's generally the idea is there. So I think it's a pretty nice little front entry landscape.
That's a ginkgo tree or a kind of eucalyptus. What?
That's a ginkgo.
What?
A maidenhair ginkgo. And then a cercis on the street, right?
Yeah. It's a redbud, yeah.
Yeah. So I have no
I-
problems with the
A
landscape.
ginkgo could work really well there. And I don't know the other eucalyptus, Oleanthemos, do you know, is it silver dollar gum, do you know that? Is that
I do, I love those trees,
a
yeah.
good tree
Yeah.
for that? It'd work well here?
Are they
Yeah.
shown here?
Yeah, it says or, ginkgo
or, yeah,
biloba
yeah.
or, so ginkgo or the silver dollar gum. Yeah, okay,
Both very column there.
works with me.
We call this contemporary, but there's a building on Madison that's similar to this, built in the early 60s.
One with no windows?
Yeah, the one with no windows. And
That's
it's
a weird one.
643 Madison. It's a huge rectangular box, all shingles, except for one side has all glass. And the other side is just a parking garage door. So this is much, compared to that, this is a much
yeah.
more sophisticated approach.
Yeah.
But, it's not the first contemporary building in Albany by any means.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to
There it is.
try to wrap it up, so I don't know if you had
No,
other
no, I mean,
comments.
yeah, I was just gonna give kind of my general, like, summary is that, I mean, I enjoy modern design, so I'm not opposed to it on that level. And I kind of defer to Chris in terms of the front landscaping design. I do like the contrast between the sort of unfinished landscape and the very sort of tight box of a house. I guess my one sort of hesitation, as Doug said, was just putting this modern box into the context of Albany and its existing typologies. And it definitely is very different, and even more so than I think some of the modern projects that we've approved in the last year. For sure. And so, and I think part of that for me is the minimal detail in terms of, we try to avoid just monolithic facades. We like to have the wall plane broken up as much as possible. We like to have subtle details like window trim or brackets at eaves, things like that. And so I think that for me is just causing me a sort of second to take in. And so those are kind of my thoughts. I definitely would recommend, or at least I would take the position that I think an awning over the front entryway should be included as a condition for approval, so that, I think it'll just help break up that flatness of that front elevation, and I think it'll add a sort of pragmatic usefulness to the front. So I guess those are kind of my.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that I would be comfortable moving to approve this project with the addition of an awning as a condition of approval, if you all think you can live with that, so, okay. Oh, you do? Okay. Okay. It looks very functional.
Are there any other proposed changes that we
Yeah,
were
perfect.
talking about? That was the only one. We talked
was-
about
I think I
the
was thinking-
gate, but I
Merge
think
the
we,
privacy, the glass. So did you say anything about the glass, or we're just letting it go?
they were going to run their Title 24 calcs, and that was,
Yeah, it won't be reflective.
Yeah, but,
Everything will be transparent, just might have like a green tint, but I don't know, I mean, yeah, I guess I personally was still kind of struggling with the idea of the sliding glass door at the front too.
Well, we'll just have to see how it goes, and then you'll be the test case, the next one.
Yeah.
Everybody can blame you if,
Yeah, right.
if it doesn't work out. Okay, so I
so
guess.
you ready for a motion?
Sure, unless there are any other comments.
I am ready to move for the approval of PA 17074 design review for 967 Curtis, with the addition of a condition of approval to include an awning over the front door.
Can I also add a friendly amendment to condition that if downspouts and gutters are installed, that they be of a copper finish, as you described? I don't know if you're willing to.
I don't care. It's fine. I'm amenable.
Great.
Oh,
Yes.
Just thinking about it, would it be possible to have it be the same finish as the windows, the window frames, rather
Yeah.
than copper?
Yeah, you can copper or to match the finish of the window.
Match the other details, as few as they are.
Okay, there has been a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second for approval with the two conditions previously stated. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right,
All opposed?
I'll say aye too.
All right.
We will be hearing about this.
Oh, I know.
think, because it is
I
a
know.
very dramatic change on this street, and the context of it will stand out.
But it's been said already, but I think it bears repeating that thank you for going to the neighbors, for being proactive
Really
and
appreciate
reaching
it.
out.
That was a great
and
diagram, neighborhood
really-
diagram, yeah.
It really helps make our job easier. And obviously, you will have better relationships with your neighbors as well.
That's great.
So
No,
thank you.
that's really true. That is well said, yes.
And so there has been a motion, it's been seconded, and it was a unanimous vote of approval, if I remember correctly. So your project has been approved with those conditions that we have mentioned, and staff can work with you to finalize those aesthetic aspects of those conditions. Otherwise, there is a 14-day appeal period, so please do not make any sudden moves or decisions till after the appeal period is over. And that includes keeping up your story polls until after that time. Otherwise, that is it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay. Congratulations, good luck. We look forward to seeing it.
And our next project up is PA 17-051, 1049 Kains Avenue.
Yes, once again, this is planning application 17051, design review for a second-story addition at 1049 Kains. Some background on the property. The subject property is a 3,750 square foot lot with an existing 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 870 square foot home built in 1930. City records show the previous property owners did minor repair work to the home, which include a kitchen remodel, parking strip repair, and foundation repair. The current owner purchased the property in December of 2016. Prior to the purchase, unpermitted work was done to the home, including interior demolition and window replacement. Here's a street view of the property as it looks today. Project request. The applicant is seeking design review approval for a second-story addition. The applicant is proposing a 367 square foot ground level addition with an attached 234 square foot garage. The addition will accommodate this addition on the ground floor will accommodate a master suite, a half bath, and the staircase to the proposed second-story addition. The proposed second-story addition includes 2 bedrooms, a shared bathroom, and an additional master suite. The second-story addition is proposed to be set back approximately 23 feet from the building face. Recent review. The project was last seen by the Commission on the October 25th, 2017 hearing. The Commission suggested the following refinement for the project: that the landscape plan should include a proposed building footprint, provide more details on the materials proposed for the exterior of the home, refer to the design guidelines when refining the columns at the rear of the proposed home, consider lowering the slope of the roof and/or reducing the overall height of the building, consider high-quality windows with mullions on the exterior of the glazing, to also refine porch to be consistent with the design guidelines, that the proposed architectural plans be refined and clear, reduce the FAR to be no more than 55%, consider reaching out to the neighbors about the proposed project and concerns, reducing massing at the rear of the home to soften the appearance, and to center the second-story addition to be more centered with the main level. Here's the existing elevation of the building. Here was what was previously proposed, and this is what's proposed to you today. Project refinement. The applicant has made the following refinements since the last reviewed by the Commission. They've centered the second-story addition with regards to the proposed main level. They've lowered the overall building height, resulting in a maximum height of 25 feet, which was previously 28 feet. Increased the rear yard setback from 15 feet to 19 feet. Included true divided light windows throughout. Specifically identified the proposed exterior materials. They modified the garage door design. They've identified the exterior wood trim throughout and added corbels at the gable ends, revised the landscape plan, provided staff with a clear architectural plan set, and contacted the neighbors regarding the proposed project and the associated concerns. Exceptional designs. Projects which exceed a 0.45 FAR are subject to exceptional design as reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Exceptional design treatments include a covered porch entry, varying materials for the exterior of the home, architectural brackets, true divided light windows, a rear porch area with support columns to match the front of the home. Parking. 2 existing off-street parking spaces are provided by the home in the detached garage and driveway. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing single-car garage and proposing to build an attached 234 square foot garage. 3 off-street parking spaces are proposed for the home, 1 in the attached garage and 2 in tandem in the existing driveway out of the required front setback area. Correspondence is received at the last meeting. 1 correspondence was received by staff voicing concerns over basic site regulations. Photos were also submitted to staff showing the views of the subject property by the same correspondence. The applicant has notified staff of personal correspondences between the applicant and the neighbors indicating their support for the project with the refinements. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA. Recommendation, the staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the attached findings and conditions of approval. That's it.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of staff about this project? No? Okay, I see no questions. Then I will ask if the applicant is here and if the applicant would like to address the commission on this project. Present it to us if there's any additional information that might help us understand the project.
Hello, good evening. My name is Conrad Kong. I'm the owner of 1049 Kains. Just a little background about myself. I'm a software engineer. My wife and I both went to school locally. She worked in San Francisco, so we love the East Bay. We love Albany. Just before I turn over the mic to my architect, I just wanted to address the commission about some of the what happened last time during the hearing that I wasn't there. So I'm pretty new to this process. I didn't know specifically I was required to be here, and also I was led to believe that if I follow all the rules and the requirement, I didn't really have to talk to my neighbors. So that was wrong of me. For that, I apologize. But since then, I have taken control of the project. I acquired service from my new architect, as well as I engage all the neighbors. I've talked to them personally multiple times, and then we have gone through multiple revision on the new plans. If you want to read all the emails exchange I have with the neighbor, I'll be happy to show you that. So with that, I want to turn over the mic to my architect, and he will talk about all the construction details. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present this project to you. My name is John Barton. I'm the architect for the revised proposal. As staff noted, the project was originally before you in October. I was brought in after that meeting. The first thing I did was to watch the tape of the previous presentation, and I'd have to say I found very little of the comments that I could disagree with. I did think the project was worth it, however, and could be improved. And I wanted to just briefly kind of go through what we changed and how we tried to work with the staff and the neighbors and the owner as well. I saw basically 5 areas that were really concerning to me. You know, they had to do with the overall massing, privacy, dialogue between the neighbors and the owners, detailing and materials. Okay, so massing. The original, if you remember the original project, it was the rear wall of the addition, of the upper floor addition, was aligned over the rear wall of the lower floor. And the first thing I said is we've got to pull it forward. It has to be more centered. And so we basically pulled it forward. So now that basically the front wall of the upstairs now aligns over the front wall of the kitchen downstairs. Previously, it was over the rear wall of the kitchen downstairs, and the result was it was out of proportion. We also massaged the overall depth of the building, and so we reduced it a little bit. So where we were at 18 feet before to the fence, I think now we're 19 feet, 10 inches on the lower floor. And then by moving it forward, now we're almost 30 feet from the upstairs to the back fence. Okay, that I think helps a lot. We also tackled the overall height of the structure. Originally, it was a 6 and 12 roof pitch. Craftsman-style homes can vary anywhere, as shallow as 4 and 12 and as deep as 8 and 12. There's no one true pitch for a craftsman-style home. And so with that in mind, we had no problem in revising the roof pitch from 6 and 12 to 4 and 12. And obviously, that helped too. The other thing we did was the original house had a single gable going front to rear. And if you think about the height of the roof, it's, the height of the roof is determined by, it's a triangle. The height of the roof is determined by the width of the base and the slope. So we address the slope, but we also address the width. Originally, like that gable was 30 feet wide. Well, we broke it down to two gables, one going front to back and one going side to side. And so we reduced that 30 feet down to almost 22 feet. So with that, we brought the height down. I thought we were closer to 4 feet. You say 3, but I think it's actually closer to 4 feet, but it's substantially lower. So the end result from a massing point of view is that not only we're 12 feet farther away from the neighbors than we were originally, and we're also 3 to 4 feet lower, I think closer to 4. As Conrad mentioned, we did dialogue with the neighbors. As I would develop something, I'd send the drawings to him, and he would look, and he came back to us a few times with some suggestions, which we incorporated and so forth. And the last conversations, at least that I saw with him, was that he was overall, the Dykmans were supportive of our proposal. Privacy. Before we had, we had our egress windows from the back facing the neighbor, and because they were egress windows, they were obviously relatively large. Well, one of the things we did is on the back bedroom on the right, I moved the closet from the side to the back, so now in that window, that bedroom, I no longer have any window facing the rear at all. Its egress windows looks out to the front over the street. The bathroom window, I reduced in height and also raised the sill, so I think the sill of the bathroom window is now 6 feet off the floor, so unless we get the Warriors living there, no one's going to be looking in or looking out. The other window on the rear left side, we moved the egress window to the side and just have a small window, again, matching the same height as the bathroom window, primarily there for cross ventilation and light. But again, that sill is now 6 feet off the floor. So the neighbor, was very happy to see it. I think we've addressed the privacy issues. Detailing and materials. We've refined, developed, and added more details. And I think if on you have the package, right? On sheet, I think it's A5. We've kind of shown some of the details. I did want to bring up one thing because I was listening to the tape of the previous meeting. There was some discussion about the columns that we might have at the porch. And I think there was some talk kind of like, the standard Craftsman porch detail is kind of, has a pedestal, then it has a kind of a canted in. And I've used that detail myself, and it's a good detail, but what I have found is that on narrow projects like this is, it kind of gets, the proportions get a little, funky. And what I like about this detail that I've developed is, just so you understand it, it's basically intended to be a cluster of 4 4x4s. So you have a 4x4, 4 inches space, another 4x4, and then 2 more behind it. So in a sense, it forms like it looks like it's, at first you look at it, you say, okay, well, it looks massive enough so it looks like it's supporting something. It's worthwhile supporting. It's not spindly. But on the other hand, because you have the space between them, it also is light enough where it's not overpowering. And so I just think with this narrow of a frontage, that detail, I think, just works much better. We've also included the details that we intend to use for both the outriggers, for the transition from the shingles to the siding, as well as some of the corbels and the window trim. Going to be kind of heavy on the trim. It works for this kind of house. In terms of the materials, just starting at the top, it's a heavy 40-year comp. And I'm going to get to the colors at the end, but then we transition at the gable ends. We have a shingle exterior, and then we go to a horizontal siding, and then we have a rock stone veneer base. And I know what we did is I think we submitted to staff. We're not just saying stone veneer. We picked out a specific stone that I want to use, and I think it all works together. Similarly with the colors, I specifically chose colors. I think what we're looking towards doing is, overall, when you look at the house, what I want it to be is I don't want it to scream, look at me. I just wanted the colors to be kind of subtle on the darker sage green, spectrum, but I wanted there to be some variation. So like the roof comp that we picked, I'm not sure, I think I submitted like a color Xerox. I'm not sure if you have that, but it's basically one with a lot of modeling in it. It has some orange, it has some brown, it has some, green in it. So it's not a monochromatic. The intent is that although all the colors are in the same hue, it's not monochromatic. There's some variation. I mean, the stone has a lot of variation in the color. The shingles are a slightly lighter color than the siding. And so again, the idea being that you kind of start at the base and the colors are darker, and as you kind of go up, the colors get a little bit lighter, although with variation. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just have one quick clarification question. At the gable ends where you're going to have the shingles, is that going to be like a wood cedar shingle, or are we talking composition shingles?
No, it's a wood cedar shingle.
Okay, good. That was my only question. Are there any other questions of the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I will open it
I'll
up.
make a comment. I'll make a comment.
I'm just gonna,
I'll make a
I'm gonna
comment.
open up to public comment, just to follow the rules. And so now I'm gonna open up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the commission on this? All right, I'm gonna close the public comment period, bring it back to the commission for a full discussion. Please.
Oh, my comment was, to start out with anyway, thanks for the drawings. They're so much easier to read. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the first thing I noticed, so.
I mean, I will,
Yeah,
I'll
that's great.
I'll piggyback on that and just say that I think I appreciate the applicant's responsiveness to our comments and suggestions. And I think this design is, I'll say, night and day from the old one. I think it's a much needed and great improvement on the design. And I appreciate the suggestion for the columns was merely a suggestion. I think your choice was a good choice.
I agree.
And so, yeah, in general, I like the detailing of it. I appreciate they have true divided light windows of a craftsman style. I appreciate the stone veneer to help break up the materiality of the elevation in the front. And, yeah, I think it works well.
So there was no, maybe it's a question for the architect or the owner. John and Diane, who wrote that letter in October,
Yeah.
what did they say about this new design?
About what?
The new design, they were,
So I'll let the applicant speak to that, but I can tell you, I sent a courtesy email to John last week to let him know, obviously, public hearing notices had been sent, and if he wanted to submit comments as part of the project, an agenda packet, he could do so, and I did not hear from him.
okay.
Did you have?
No, he didn't send any to staff. He sent it to the architect and applicant.
And
If
see-
you wanna address, yeah.
And it seemed like a major concern, just while you're walking up, was that, was the massing and moving it to the center, so.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Just to pile on, I think my immediate impression of the first design was like a giant house swallowing a small house, and this is still like, it's a sizable addition, but it's much more in scale with the existing house, and I really appreciate breaking up the massing. Like Commissioner Kent said, it's really night and day from the prior set of designs we saw. So I really like the way it looks from the front. And on the back side, on the east elevation, I appreciate the revisions that were made to address some of the privacy concerns. At the same time, there's just something about that east elevation that looks off to me. I mean, it's obviously not symmetrical, and maybe that's what I'm struggling with. But I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that, just from an architectural point of view.
The rear?
Yeah, the rear. And
okay.
I'm saying that just as my reaction. I don't necessarily think it's not a huge deal, but I'm curious to hear others' thoughts on that.
I hear what you're saying. I think maybe part of it is, at least my perspective, is because that portion of the elevation on the sort of left side is sort of devoid of anything. I think part of that just comes from pragmatics, because the upper floor is a
As
closet.
the closet, yeah.
And the lower floor is a garage. I mean, I'm just throwing this out here now and not as a actual recommendation, but I mean, there is a possibility, if you want, of like adding like a little transom window or something up here, or just like adding a little window to the garage to help that elevation, but I'm not as concerned because it's the back rear
It's the back,
elevation.
Yeah.
agree.
What about the upper floor? I guess I'm just reacting to the fact that there's two windows on one side and four on the other side. And again, I understand the practical, like I know that's a bathroom and then a bedroom next to it, but
And are you still referring to the?
I'm still talking about the rear, yeah.
I guess, I mean, the one part the aspect of those upper windows that I appreciate is because they're high windows or transoms, it's addressing that privacy issue so that somebody inside can't really look out to the neighbor's yard and
Right.
vice versa. And I guess I'm being lenient too again because it's the rear yard.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I'm just so appreciative of the changes that, yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a PC way to say that.
I think of what I'm hearing is in the future, people just need to come to us with a really poor design first, and then what? No, I'm just kidding. This is very nice.
That's sort of, that is one of the push and pulls, is this sort of like, you don't want to design the project for
Right.
someone, but at the same time, you want to give them something to sort of lead them.
Yeah.
So it's a tough call. But yeah.
Okay.
I would just add, I mean, we definitely want to see the investment in Albany, so appreciative of the fact that you're coming here and putting money into the community. But, you know, especially with the higher FAR, because this is 0.55, you know, we're trying to balance the community aesthetic. So I like the design. I think you guys did a really nice job responding to it, so thank you.
And this elevation shows the door coming out on the south side, it sort of drops off with a foot drop, or no, are there steps there or any kind of transition? How do you get off of that? There would be landing steps. There'd be a couple landing steps, okay.
And which is fine if there's a landing and steps. I just want to make sure that any landing and steps that are there are done in a way that they don't impede the use of the garage. That makes sense. Are there any other thoughts or comments on this project?
No, I don't think I have any.
Okay.
It's just, it's such a big improvement of what we had
What's-
before, and
what's-
I'm pretty comfortable with it. I like the west elevation, which is the front. I'm happy with that. That's what most people see. And I appreciate moving the mass toward the center, and I appreciate the way that you've listened to the comments that we had earlier, which were pretty voluminous. I'm happy with it. Yeah. Yep. It is a big house for this lot. There's no doubt about that. And maybe if it were just coming to us initially, I might be I might look at it more rigorously, but it is a big improvement of what we had, and I think I can support it.
Yeah, are there any other comments or thoughts?
If you're ready, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, do you have anything you wanted to add, Chris?
Well, yeah, I wasn't here when it was first reviewed, so when I went online to look at what the neighbor's concerning, this one popped up, and so it's replaced the old one. I couldn't find the old one online, so I can't relate to what you guys are looking at. But this is a really high FAR, and looking at the landscape plan, what is shown is not objectionable, but it's only a piece of the landscape. I'm not going to push it. We're going to get into the design lines next, and I have some comments that. But you know, it's just having all wood chips for your whole backyard. Okay.
So maybe one aspect of the approval might be a condition to sort of develop the.
Well, I think they're going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? You're going to have wood chips for the backyard for maybe a year, and they say, well, I can do something better than this. So it's something that's going to take place. I don't really think I have to mandate it from here, so I'm not worry about it. But
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, unless there are any other comments, I'm open to a motion on this item.
Yeah. Chris, I'll make this, there's the 2 pine trees that are proposed in the backyard. I'm looking at that. Now, those would be, I think, fairly slender. Is that right?
those,
Pinus, I forget the species.
He wants to.
Go ahead.
Fern pines.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not even, they're evergreens, but they're not pines, really. They're,
It's an evergreen? Okay.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up. You know, we put the landscape architect in consultation with the rear neighbor. Actually, like, you know, he suggested a couple species, and we showed the rear neighbor like what would be, and he kind of wanted them there specifically. If you remember last time,
Yeah,
he was saying that kind of in the alleys between the houses, he had a view of the bridge, and he
Right.
didn't want to lose that. So that's why they're kind of placed precisely in that location.
yeah, those are very dense trees.
Right.
So there's a couple varieties, and Gracillia, I don't remember which one it is, but one of them stays pretty low, the other one gets pretty big. So they probably want the lower one, I would think, because they can,
Yeah, I think they were looking like they wanted to be like at least, you know, like I seem to recall them saying like, you know, 15 feet high minimum.
yeah. That's true, fine.
I was thinking that was related to the neighbors, because we had comments on the neighbors' views that were pretty extensive, so I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And the front yard landscaping plan is much more thought out and has many more plants. I'm okay with that. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve planning application 17-051, design review for a second-story rear addition at 1049 Kains Avenue, as presented in the staff report. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, your project has been approved. There is a 14-day appeal period, so please do not make any permanent decisions or moves until after that 14-day appeal period is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project.
Yes, good luck. And our next thing up is the residential design guidelines. This should be quick.
Yeah, we can talk later. Yes, this is the residential design guidelines updates.
Just before we begin, this has been about a year and a half process. We've come to you a few times, initially in September of 2016, November of 2016, the spring, and more recently in the fall. And so this is the culmination of additional photos, a lot of input and feedback, and we'd like to think this is kind of the final draft form, but certainly we're willing to make any modifications as you see appropriate based on your review this evening.
Did this take longer than we thought it would? I don't know, we didn't.
That's a good question. I don't know that it did.
Yeah.
It kind of started and then stopped a little bit, and then I think through the course of receiving feedback, it was clear this needed to be reorganized and just kind of refocused in general from the current guidelines that we work with, which are, they're helpful, but I would characterize them also as kind of random.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say, I'll start off by saying you guys did a great job. I know it's a lot of hard work putting these things together, and the new design guidelines, as you present them to us, look really good, and I think it's a great change. I do have some, I think they're all more sort of like typographical.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Little notes.
I have a couple of those.
But substantively, I think I don't have any issues with the design guidelines as presented, so.
And we'll also, we owe a big thank you to Commissioner Donaldson for taking
It's fun.
pretty much every photo in the document.
It's fun, been fun. That's been
His
fun.
tools are much more effective than ours are, as well as having a keen eye.
Yeah, I think you were very, from my review of this, you certainly incorporated all the comments from the last time we considered this, which is the only time we've considered it since I've been on the commission. So this is just my second time seeing it. But I think it looks like a great document. I really do appreciate, I didn't know it was you, but I appreciate all the additional photos and really just trying to help give kind of, best practice examples to the public. And really the only, even this is, I realize is nitpicky, but I certainly wouldn't hold up approval or, recommending that the council adopt these, but I would suggest if there's any way in the final version to replace the after picture on page 44, because I look at it and I just see an Airstream and you can't see the
44.
house.
Oh,
It's this one.
822 San Carlos?
Yeah, 8. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like a 22 on the house, but.
I know which one there's in.
The one that just,
This one?
that's.
I know, I've tried, and every time I've gone there, that
It's always
Airstream
parked
is
there.
always there.
Well, maybe just take
Maybe
it
take
from.
from a different angle.
Actually,
least
that's
take
not
it from
really
a
true,
different
because
angle.
it usually has a couple motorcycles there, too.
Okay.
I've talked to the homeowner a couple times, but
Shouldn't laugh at.
And then,
Yeah.
the only other one, and
Yeah,
this isn't
yeah, we
even,
could-
this
yeah.
isn't even really a comment. I honestly don't really care if you change this, but I observed that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the page. There was one house that appeared twice in here, I think.
yeah. I did notice
It's
that.
this one that's 992 something, this cute green
Oh, yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Put it in as a craftsman example.
And as something else. I just thought it would be nice if you could
can change that.
swap it out in one of those instances, but again, oh, that was, the second one was on page 41.
Okay.
Again, just really to give an additional example, but I think this is a great-looking document, and it's going to be a really helpful tool moving forward.
We can replace this with another craftsman.
Okay,
And let's see, which one is
Furbish
that?
Doug with an address.
great.
41, you said?
Yeah, is the second.
43, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, and the other one is on page 22.
And 22.
Yeah.
They
22.
have a presentation they were going to
Yeah, that was the guy that really wanted to know what I
I
was
mean, I
doing.
think they're just gonna
Yeah.
tell us that they revised them and then
Yeah. He wanted, who are you? What
walk
are
us
you
through
doing?
it.
Yeah, so, yeah, that appears
It's
twice.
a nice-looking
yeah,
house, but
yeah.
You done?
I'm done. Thanks.
Okay.
Do you mind if
I think the photo on page 22, the one next to it, is kind of strange, too.
Yeah.
But it's okay, it's one of those 25-foot
Yeah,
wide lot ones.
It's a 25 by 100 lot.
And, yeah, and,
A shotgun house.
yeah, so,
If we may, while
fits.
we're talking about photos, I have
Okay.
something similar on pages 48 and 49. This is my one sort of photo critique, is on page 48, I wanted, my suggestion was going to be that we take the house that's on the right on page 48 and replace the house that's on the left of page 49 with that.
Oh, so in other words, we're basically moving the two photos between the pages.
Yeah, and then I was going to actually suggest that the house, the orange house on page 48, just get rid of it, as well as the one with the big tree in front of it.
Oh.
Does that make
Eliminate
sense?
We'll eliminate one
Examples?
page.
Yeah, basically eliminate one page and kind of swap photos.
I like the one with the big tree in front of it.
Okay. I just felt like it didn't really show a lot because the tree.
Well, that's true. It doesn't show a lot
covering
of the house, but I think the house itself is really cute.
About hiding behind
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that's right. Illustrates that.
And my critique of the orange house on, or the left one on page 48 was just that I didn't really personally feel like it was a very attractive design.
I don't, yeah, I'm not real fond of it either.
Okay, so we'll get rid of that house then and move things around.
Said the one on the left or the right?
Of the left of page
That one?
48.
rid of this.
Oh, no, I'd rather,
He
I'd,
also suggested getting rid of this, but
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah. If you guys want to stay.
I'm
I'm fine.
objecting.
yeah, I like, them. Yeah, I like them both. My
Yeah.
problem is, I don't like the one on the right on page 48 too well, but,
Yeah, I felt that way too. I don't know. Those are my only critiques in terms of the
Okay.
photos. I liked all the rest.
And one of my comments from before was just how we're going to use the document. And I find it helpful in the current staff reports, when you guys go through and do analysis, you use the current design guidelines, and there's a statement. So just looking at one of the modern house we saw in the design guidelines analysis, it says, the front yard is the house's contribution to the street, and then you'll kind of respond to that. Garage should have a single door to be attractive and respond to that. Dormers and bays are encouraged. And it doesn't, I guess, you guys are going to be the ones who are going to be using this on a very regular basis. If you look at the table of contents on page 3, I mean, the way that it's written, some of these are not set up to do it the same way. So I just want to make sure this is something you guys are going to be able to work with. I mean, currently it just says outdoor space. rear yards and decks, roof decks, balconies, you know?
Yeah, the outdoor
Oh,
space.
right,
they
instead
are
of making it
guidelines.
like a criteria,
Yeah.
it's just like a category.
Right,
Yeah.
that was my comments.
Well, yeah, we'll have it structured a little more broadly rather than focusing in on these specific design elements as the current ones do. And so we would still continue to provide you with, you know, a detailed analysis as you're asked to evaluate design review applications. But we would kind of keep it a little more broad, focusing on landscape design, outdoor space, architectural design, and so on.
Would it be too much work if we asked you to come back sort of with a template on how you might do that at a, you know, another meeting from now or something like that? So,
I mean,
Without,
I
do-
think,
do you
I think
wanna-
I think his comment is really well taken, and it might be a challenge, and
So would your preference be to defer action then, and then at the?
not necessarily, but let's, I think, not necessarily defer action, but not necessarily revise the report, but have the two of you sit down and think about, well, how would we apply this to a sample project, maybe one of the projects that we've seen tonight, and how would we apply this, and how are the staff reports going to change if this is adopted?
More of like
I'd
just
like
a
to-
handout
I
for,
think Val's right. I think
later.
it might be a bit challenging. It's certainly going to be different than what you've been doing.
If I may, I mean, my interpretation of this is that this book basically just is like a compilation of exemplary projects that have either whole projects or elements that people can refer to. And so I mean, we have our design guidelines that say, you know, specifically, what is it, you know, the front yard and front facade design are the home's contribution to the community. And then if anybody's like, well, what does that exactly mean? Staff would then be able to say, well, hey, if you go to our design guidelines and look at page 11, you can see two houses that have developed their front yard and their front elevation that is in the direction of what we're looking for in terms of its contribution to the community. So that's kind of my interpretation of what this is, and without giving them like a you know, exact example of, you have to have a front porch that's 20 by 10, that's covered. It's just kind of giving them examples in the direction that we're looking, so that they won't be completely befuddled or just grasping at air to try to come up with a solution.
I guess I'd say I think it's both kind of guidance for people who are doing design, but it seems to me we use it also in the staff report in terms of trying to provide us with some analysis to that. So, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I just, you know, the last one we did was 2009, so we're going to be stuck with this for better or worse for 8 or 10 years. So you just should make sure it's something you're going to be able to work with.
Yeah, to that,
And maybe it is, but
to that point, if you go to page 14, I think it illustrates it very well. Under roof decks, it says integrated into the architectural style of the home, step back from, it gives kind of design guidelines. Where under rear yard decks, it just lists materials, there's nothing there to use, right? It's just, you know what I mean? Under rear yard decks, it just says materials, guardrails, privacy, placement, lighting fixtures. It's not giving you a sense of what you should be doing. That materials should be matching the building. Lighting fixtures should be soft and not glaring, some sort of qualification on these elements. So I think that's to your point.
You're saying they're guidelines, not standards, for sure.
Yeah, well, under roof decks and balconies, they're written as guidelines, but under rear yard deck, it's just listed as elements.
It's like.
right, there's no criteria to take that and say, this
Do
is
with it,
the kind of guardrail or handrail. I mean, so, yeah, I think it's a good point. From my perspective, I don't think we necessarily need to come back and do this again if there's a way that, you can kind of incorporate criteria into something. Like if there is another option to have some kind of separate checklist or.
I think my preference, we can do whatever the, commission decides, but in light of this, I think it would be appropriate to continue this to the next meeting, just so that we have that ironed out.
Since we're going to do that, can I say a few other comments on this? I know you put a lot of work into it, but I know my last time I gave comments, they were spotty, and I feel somewhat responsible for not giving you, especially on the landscape thing.
Okay.
But as I flicked through, there were a few things that jumped out, like you said, required details specified in a planning application checklist. Is there such a thing?
Yeah,
Or is that what we call the self-certification checklist?
Yeah, so we've run into issues, I mean, this is exactly why we have a self-certification checklist as part of our planning application. We sometimes have applicants who are selective about the information that they choose to provide as part of their application, which is why they have to check and self-certify that they've prepared the site survey, they have existing and proposed elevations, they're detailing out what we expect to see as part of a design review application.
So there is something called the planning application checklist? I couldn't find it online.
Okay, we can, it's part of the application. but we
Oh, it
can
is?
certainly
Oh, okay, so it's
provide
buried
that.
in, okay,
Yeah, it's
okay,
page
great.
4 of our planning application.
Another element that kind of minor wording, some of it's just, I'm just going to give it to you. Oh,
Sorry, while Chris is looking, I just wanted to reiterate, I think one thing, I think for the next time would be just under page, 14, where we talk about rear yard decks, is I think just specifically that category is making that sort of match in the same way that the roof decks and balconies have, rather than just listing out things, giving a sort of qualification as to why they should be considering it, if that makes sense.
So I really took a strong pass at the landscape thing, 'cause I thought it was repeating and not really hitting some of the elements. So I took the bay-friendly guidelines, the Wheelo guidelines, and the Build It Green guidelines, and combined them into bullet points, some of what we repeated here, and just made it all clear. So you can, I made some copies if you guys want it.
Oh, yeah.
So you can just, if you're okay with them, you can use those.
I appreciate the feedback, and
Did you
Oh, here,
you
so-
have some?
Yeah, yeah.
You guys need. Yeah, okay, he got it.
And the last comment, when you're talking about photographs, still that issue on page 11. And Doug, if you have that photograph, I can edit it, get that step out of there, that everybody break their neck on.
What's that? I can, where?
That's a code violation in a big way.
Which one?
On page 11?
Page 11, having
Yeah,
that one step there.
The step.
Oh, that's a code violation?
Yeah, I thought that was the same photograph you'd commented
right.
on last time. Okay, so what's wrong with that step?
Walking at night, you're not going to expect to step there. You're going to step, you're going to just break your neck on that step. I'm sure if you talk to people who live there, they've had many a guest that tripped on that thing.
Need to find another photo there.
Plants do look.
No, I can edit it for you really quickly. We'll send it, if you don't mind, I can just,
What would you,
I would just go into photo editor and take it out.
Crop the bottom, or, oh, you.
No, I can do all kinds of magical stuff.
Make it a ramp.
Yeah, right. You'd never even know.
yeah, I don't know that we should do that. I don't
Oh, all right, all right. I mean, for me, it's just an illustration. It's not a,
Yeah, it's an example, yeah. And it's a landscaping example, but, yeah, okay.
unless
I
there's
guess
another
a
property
front
that
sidewalk is
I
a
think
landscape,
is
yeah.
illustrative of good landscaping.
don't look at my house, that's for sure.
Okay, well, let's see what we're gonna do that, okay.
Well, I'm okay if you decide if you end up cropping it or editing it.
Yeah, maybe cropping would work.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, the only other thing I just
So,
wanted to say.
Chris, should we review these comments, or you're gonna submit them to staff?
Well, you could read them, and if you don't, I don't think you have any objections, they're pretty basic, but
Yeah, no, I
I
think
just
we
wanted to
should,
inform you, I didn't
we
want to
should-
give them to you without.
we should make these
okay.
edits as
And,
part of
and
the draft.
and one other thing too, outdoor space, I don't know, it doesn't seem awkward right under landscape, so I thought maybe exterior building space might be a better title, but I don't know, that's not great either.
No.
We have landscape design, then outdoor space, it seemed a little bit like the same thing almost.
Well, since we're providing more comments, I will I'll say one thing that I think I've mentioned before, but then it kind of came up again tonight, which is I think that at some point it would be really helpful to design some criteria for what it means when we're considering exceptional design for the higher FAR projects. And again, I don't feel strongly that that's something that needs to be, incorporated into this document per se. But if, we are being asked to consider whether something meets that conceptual or exceptional design, is it always just we know it when we see it, or is there anything we can say about the kinds of things that people should be striving for? So again, it's something to consider.
I'm almost wondering if it would be appropriate to just, as we have these sort of later portions of the document, architectural character, contemporary design, before and after, we just include another page with exceptional design and provide some visual.
Yeah, if you have some ideas about what,
Yeah.
what would go into
I
that.
think you can draft something on that. I think that'd be good. Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of typos, and that's about it, that I think. So I'll have to page through it here and see where I go. On page 11, the picture on the right, the caption on the right, it ends with the word "and," so there's a phrase missing that just got dropped there. When I printed it out or something, you see that?
You mean the photo on the left?
What?
Yeah.
Photo on the left.
Yes, photo on the left, the caption. See on the text, yeah. You see it, you got it?
Yeah, we got it,
okay.
thank you.
Something wrong there. And then on page 15, okay, in the bold type under architectural design, the first paragraph there, the second sentence says, qualities and features which make are unique. So something's missing.
Which
Which
I
are
think
unique or which make something.
Are unique to the home.
Yeah.
It was, you've edited and a word got left in or a phrase got dropped. I was a little bit unclear.
Oh, and actually, sorry, now that we're, it says the following should, prescriptive criteria should.
Oh,
So I think the
yeah,
first should
oh, yeah.
should be removed.
Okay. Yeah. On page 23, if these are, it's supposed to illustrate paint color, maybe I ought to go rephotograph them in better light. And I'm not sure which streets these were on, but kind of maybe both houses. I don't know, remember if I took those pictures or not, but on a cloudy day, we'd be able to get better color.
Okay.
I'm confident, so if you can shoot me an email about which houses those are, I can probably rephotograph them. Are we going to redo this now, or are we going to send it on to council? Whatever.
No,
I think we're going to continue it.
I think we should continue it to the next
Continue it?
meeting on the
Okay.
24th.
Okay. Then I could be able to do that if you can figure out what houses those were. It's just, I think the photos could be better now.
I wanted to make some comments on the contemporary architecture, too.
Sure. I was just going to see if Doug had any other,
Maybe on page 33, I'm just paging through here, maybe I should just finish, I don't have much. The last sentence on the text on page 33, let's see, design within a void is not design, I would say semicolon, good design is context-aware as well as functional. Just an editorial comment. That might be it.
Or on a page 9, under bullet item 3, you have a word parking in there, it shouldn't be there. Architectural design,
Oops,
parking.
yeah. Good catch, thanks.
So just with the earlier project in mind, the modern building that we saw, and just if we could just take a second and focus on the contemporary thing and just does this work? Is this helpful, given the conversation that we had tonight? And I'm just thinking,
that's good.
we did talk a little bit about that building we saw, about concerns about massing, some of the details, the window reflection, screening on the interior. And this is not a modern architecture thing, but I still have some concerns about how we deal with tear downs, if we can do it at all. Maybe it's not a design guidelines, but does this give enough direction on page 46?
Val, what page are you on?
46.
Yeah.
Contemporary architecture?
Yeah. Okay, I found it.
I read this, and that brought up, when I read this, I thought of the porch issue, which came up a couple times. on
Yeah.
Is this overriding the desire to have a porch, or is this in conjunction with the rest of this?
I would read it in conjunction.
Yeah, that's
Right,
my
that's all,
interpretation.
You know, just as a point of clarity on that, you condition that project to have a porch overhang. We actually have as a bullet point in here to potentially have suspended overhang, something that adds more
Yeah.
three-dimensional definition to the building.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Right.
You do.
And the examples all seem to show overhangs of some sort.
I wouldn't have picked that up unless you called that out, cable suspended overhangs. I mean, is it worthwhile that you're calling out that specifically that you're looking for a third dimension, or we're looking for?
We could make it more broad. I mean, I'm not an architect, but I do think it is important to break up the wall plane and to have some dimensions so that there's relief to the building design. And I'll defer to our architect on the commission, but
No, I agree.
So is there a tweak here that we can add just to?
Yeah, I was trying to think of how to make it a little more broad rather than specifically like cable suspended overhangs. One thing I was going to say at the very last sentence to the paragraph above where it says features of contemporary homes include, maybe just adding wordage that says features of contemporary homes include but is not limited to. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of adding like to that cable suspended overhangs, cable and or cantilevered overhangs. I don't know, that way they have two options.
Or not
But
to be
it's
very
still-
specific, just that.
But what's the objective?
Yeah,
I mean,
right, I think-
going to her objective, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's true.
Breaking up what would you say, the wall plane?
breaking up the wall plane to give it some three-dimensional relief.
And you still need to make a clear port of entry, right? That's
Yeah.
still an architectural home. It could be done in a contemporary way or not, but, yeah.
Maybe that's more of a broad sort of contemporary category, just
Yes.
differentiating, like front entry or something of that nature, like.
Clear, did we say that somewhere, a clear front entry? I thought that was stated somewhere.
I mean, I know we talk about porches and front entries under the general architectural design. Or maybe it's just I'm sorry, I was gonna say, maybe it's just like a simple sentence where it says, these contemporary elements can be used in conjunction with the other
Right.
design guidelines so that people are clear about that. So we're not trying to say either or.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. If we can just add a sentence about, this being a sort of overlay or, using in conjunction with the more generally applicable design principles expressed throughout. Because even if something's contemporary, that doesn't mean, that you don't want it to be livable and have, a nice front yard and everything.
So what about the glass, like the building that we saw? It is called out here, as a feature, high-placed and larger window openings, but there were some issues that were brought up about reflectivity, and also you had talked about kind of the privacy tension. Is there anything that we would want to make a statement there?
It's hard for me because I just want to specifically go to like specifics but I don't want to dictate what they do.
I'm thinking more just something that could speak to design quality or something
Yeah.
like that without designing it, but I'm just raising it because we saw the thing earlier and.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
as you look at it and look at these photos and think about it, that really, that design we saw tonight had a lot of glass in the front.
Yeah.
It really did.
Which is pretty typical for a modern building, right? I mean,
Well, yeah.
these examples don't show as much of it.
These don't
as we
show it.
saw, yeah.
It's not that typical in Albany, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, yeah, just thinking out loud too, maybe is that one of the issues, is just sort of reconciling the notion of like general modern design versus Albany's existing sort of modern and contemporary designs? And
Well, under trim and detail, for instance, could we say that the contemporary design that we passed today fits within what we describe here? Architectural details add visual appeal to a home and help maintain
Page 21.
style. Consistent use of small details is effective at adding visual interest and alleviating mass. Did the building have small detail?
no,
Well, I mean,
Did it
maybe in
have
some
what?
ways had the little,
That's what I would have thought.
I don't know.
maybe it's a stretch.
Yeah, I feel that's a stretch. I feel like that was sort of all blanketed in as one just sort of facade or elevation.
So maybe instead of detail, refined trim, refined detailing rather than trim and detail.
Yeah.
This was the opposite.
Yeah, because if we're saying that
Yeah.
contemporary thing includes everything in the past, and some of these things that we're saying includes don't apply, it gets kind of murky.
Yeah, yeah.
Opens up a can of worms.
Like, there was something about that house that it was clearly such a specific vision. I guess, like, and
How
obviously,
can we
I don't
allow for
have.
that in here? How do we allow for that? I mean,
Yeah.
what do we
No,
say?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't have the architecture vocabulary, but the house we saw tonight, it didn't look like it was just sloppily, we're just going to put something up. And, it was very thought through and very specific, what the aesthetic they were going for. And I thought it was a high-quality design, which came through. I don't know how to translate that into something that could be replicated or give advice to people.
Yeah.
I don't have
Just
any
my
other comments on
opinion,
that. I
but-
was, yeah.
As an aside, the home in the corner, right corner, bottom, page 47, that's the one on Marin that we approved not too many months ago. I mean,
They just
very
finished
recently.
construction.
I really like it. I was taken by it when I looked at it photographically.
The one on the
street
right?
trees are in the way when you go by. You got to almost stop on the sidewalk and look at it. But
Yeah, they're kind of grayish.
if you remember, it was the one
Oh,
where
yeah,
they
remember that.
they had concerns about neighbors, so they put everything in the center of the house, and it worked, I think.
They have the deck on top, right?
Yeah, a deck on the front, too. That's behind that wall there. I remembered it, and the neighbors were very concerned about it. I think it came out really well. I stopped and walked out on the sidewalk and took a close look at it. Wow, that's good. That really worked out, yeah.
This is going back to the contemporary thing. I'm just, again, thinking out loud. I'm thinking of some kind of language that says something to the effect of like, contemporary or modern design must contribute to a sort of unified, cohesive whole building design, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to think of, like you said, like,
Shouldn't they all do that?
yeah, but they don't. A lot of them don't. You know,
I
it's
mean,
like they just
even
put
non-contemporary
parts on it.
designs should do that.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out some way to ask people to do that without being
Yeah.
specific. I don't know. I'll just quickly throw out my, I just emailed you guys my edits, but I'll just quickly tell you what they are. One is on page 7. I'll start at the beginning. There's only like 4 or 5. One is on page 7, the note at the bottom. Sorry, I'm just trying to get up to page 7. Where it says, I think the language at the very last sentence of page 7, the note at the bottom of the photo. I'm still trying to get the page.
7 photo? Is that it?
Site plan?
You mean the site plan? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
7 is it has the
Yes,
sample plan on it?
yes, yes. I'm sorry, and so, where is it? I wanted to say where it says notes new construction areas, just changing that to say differentiates between existing and new construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Oh, and then also show property setbacks. Just because that's not specifically called out, and I know it's something we always,
I thought I had in looking at this, is this someone's plan that was submitted to us?
I think this is the one on.
Should it be credited, or is it copyrighted? Do architects do that routinely, or?
When it's part of a design review application, it's a public document,
Got it.
and they don't put
Got it.
the
No problem.
architect or engineer.
You're right, yeah, you're right, that's fine, no problem. Okay.
and then I just want to add in page 10, this is more of just sort of a organizational thing, was, I think in the next page, I'm sorry, page 11, where is it? Page 12, you say pedestrian emphasis in big green, sort of like a title or heading to that section. And that just seemed atypical versus, like the other sections, they always just kind of call out with like bold text rather than the bright green, if that makes sense. So I don't know, just so it's, so that it matches whichever way.
It's green, landscape.
Well, it's just like, for instance, like, so when it
Looks okay to
starts
me.
talking about, like, here, it starts off with that, but then when you get to the second part of this landscape design, where it is.
Looks okay to me, all right?
Yeah.
So,
I'm not,
so the chapter is landscape
Here, so
design,
it
and then
calls that
there's
out, like,
landscape
green.
examples is a subchapter, and then pedestrian
Like,
emphasis.
the difference between here, like, because this has two sections, it has the pedestrian emphasis, and then I think the other part at the very beginning of it calls out, what? For landscape, it calls out, the front yard area is the home's contribution to the community, and then pedestrian emphasis are the two categories. And so it calls out pedestrian emphasis in the sort of big green versus the front yard area is the home's contribution. It doesn't call that out, it just starts off with bold text. So I guess I'm just trying to say if you're calling out the section title, either just make it like a dark black or have the other one match. I don't know, it's kind of dumb nitpicky, sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
typo
For continuity.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with the way it is.
And then the next one was page 14 for balconies. Again, this is just a clarification, I think, of what you're trying to say. Where it says, page 14, decks and balconies should be 6 to 8 feet in depth. And I wasn't sure if you were trying to say something like decks and balconies should be like no more than 6 to 8 feet, or I guess I'm not sure why we're calling out specifically 6 to 8 feet. Like if that's sort of a limit as to how big we want them, or just in general.
I think in general, and I think with the intent of having it actually be semi-functional space, as opposed to, a 3-foot deck, let's say, that projects that no one's ever going to use. If it's 6 to 8 feet and the intent is to make it usable, it should have a dimension that correlates to the functionality.
Okay.
So minimal.
So more of like a minimum.
Yeah.
I agree. We had a deck that was 3.5 or 4 feet, no, 4.5 or 5 feet in depth, and we got rid of it. We didn't use it. Yeah, we filled it in.
I think that's.
I kind of read that to sort of be a minimum or user workable or something like
I
that.
think in many places, it can't be considered outdoor space unless it has a minimal depth of 6 feet, right?
Really?
I think
Why?
6 feet, yeah. So if you're doing a porch and you're trying to use that as on a condo, you're using it as part of your public open space, it can't be included unless it's 6 feet.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. There you go.
That was it. The other ones, I think we've already talked about.
So unless anyone else has comments, I would suggest that we, move to continue with this. And if folks do have additional, comments that come up and one more read through, perhaps we can email staff and try to
I
get
think we're
these.
really close, but I think
Yeah.
it's worthwhile for all of us to take an
Yeah,
extra
it
2
does
weeks to
seem-
finesse this.
Try to do it next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
What is your thought on when we would get it back?
Oh, the next meeting on January 24th.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
So do we have to make official motion?
Just to continue it to a
Okay.
date certain.
So there's
January 24th.
been a motion to continue this to the next, to a date certain of January 24th. I will second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this has been continued to the next meeting. And with that, we just have new business, none. Announcements, none.
So I actually didn't have an announcement, but since you mentioned a boxy house on Madison, I happen to have an old issue of Atomic Ranch for which there is a boxy house on Madison, so it's similar. I wanted to check and see if this was the same house everyone was referring to.
No, it's
not
not that. I'll show you, I'll show it to you. It's a
Is this
crazy.
a house on,
No, but
it's a house in Albany?
Would that be-
you mean,
Madison.
no, that one that was, I saw it in an architectural magazine, of some award-winning prize back in the 60s,
Yeah,
but it's not that one.
here, I'll show you.
Oh, that-
We don't have to keep the meeting going for it, but,
It's not nearly that elegant.
what is it, 643 Madison? 'Cause I live on
Yeah, that's right.
Madison,
That's
so.
right, 643 Madison.
I actually had a question that, I don't know if we need to agendize this. I was just curious. A few months ago, we approved, I guess, a parking waiver for that Wild Card Brewery tap room. And they started construction, and I walk past it almost every day, and it seems like nothing has happened in months. And I'm just curious what's going on there.
So we gave them an exploratory demolition permit, so they could initiate construction. They are still in the plan check phase. We're actually awaiting a resubmittal from their architect.
I see.
So it is in process. The permit is under
It's
review.
moving forward then.
Because it looks like they, they set up in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Is that an opening?
Okay.
I had a question. We,
Are we getting with that?
the last meeting or the meeting before, we had the conversation about the affordable housing fee.
Amazing how subtle
That's also coming back to you on the 24th.
it's hard to put
Okay.
in words.
Did that go to council or?
Not yet. We
you're
intend
not
to
walking
do some more homework to come back to the commission
This one.
so that we can further
That's at the floor
specify fee structure and kind of provide you with
The
more
other one would,
practical
it'd be down
examples.
to here and.
Thank you.
It won't stop moving around, but it's that.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're gonna have their shades pulled gold.
Yeah, we're going to find out, aren't we?
I'll have to go look. I'm not sure.
It's a weird one. There's
Yeah.
Anything
only
else?
windows on one side.
Um,
there it
unless there are,
That house won an award?
That's
Yeah.
it. There it is.
I saw that in some architectural magazine. It was up,
and,
over the side, you look, there's no windows on the sides. There's one little teeny bathroom window on the north.
Maybe the roof
What
is
year
wrong.
was that from?
I think I'm just
Car garage.
Wow.
and so our next meeting is January 24th.
January 24th.
Okay.
Okay.
And I guess with that, I will adjourn tonight's meeting.
Okay, so can we adjourn and, in respect to, in honor or respect of Alexa, who helped us so much on the housing element, and then in honor of her husband, Terry.
Yes, indeed. Alexa has been a great contributor to Albany's community with her volunteer work and the Albany Garden.
Yeah.
And so it's sad that her partner has passed, but I wish her the best as she moves forward. Definitely.
Good. Great.
I was wondering what happened to her. I haven't seen her.